This is iRacing.
Hyperbole is difficult with the Nürburgring. The size, the challenge, and the history are all backed up by the facts. So there's not much more to it than to say it's time to get ready for round 10 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is Jake Sperry. Behind the scenes is our director, Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Jake, it's the mother of them all today, the Ring.
It is an absolutely magnificent circuit. We've seen it time and time again over its fabled and infamous history. It has got all the corners, all of the measure of metric that sits with it. And ultimately, it boils down to two very distinct sections of track. The run up the hill and then the run back down it once again. The race to the carousel and then the race back home. Watch out for great overtaking opportunities toward the end, with the Dottinger Höhe being the one great long straight where so long as you're within a second, you have a shot of winning.
In fact, almost as close as 2 seconds would do it. But the lap is so long here, we'd run out of time in our pre-race just trying to ride around for a single circuit. So here's a summary with our track guide. Welcome to the Nürburgring. Nicknamed the Green Hell by three-time F1 world champion Sir Jackie Stewart, it is often regarded as the greatest test of a driver anywhere on the planet. Just looking at the stats will tell you why. While the combined version holds a swath of choices, they all include 100+ corners and range between 14 and 16 miles, or 24 to 26 kilometers in length. Add to that roughly 1,000 feet in elevation change over the course of the lap, and it's easy to see what's so impressive about it. Simply memorizing the course is over half the battle for drivers, let alone being fast. It goes without saying that the Nordschleife portion is dangerous. Many fast corners lack runoff, there's blind apexes everywhere, and in a couple cases, even modern cars will get airborne. The list of famous turns is pretty lengthy, but some of the more notorious are places such as fluke lots, miss hit miss, bravery corner, and of course, the ever iconic carousel. It's not just the places where you have to move the wheel that get attention too. The Dottinger Höhe stretches for more than 1.5 miles in length. However, that isn't even digging into the Grand Prix portion of the circuit. Much more open and safer in nature, it's no less challenging from a technical standpoint. Passing is still surprisingly hard in most cars, and corners such as the Schumacher S can spit you into the barrier if you don't respect the curbs. Events such as the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring offer drivers of many skill levels the chance to tackle this behemoth, and still draws gigantic grids to this day. Many race fans consider this the mecca of road racing, and any driver who is able to push the limits here often quickly garners their respect. I think the thing that makes me most happy about this place, Jake, is simply the fact that it still exists and runs today.
I tell you what, I've had a lap around this place in a 7-seater Ford Mondeo. This is a place where when drivers decide that they love this place, they truly love this place. You get drivers who put thousands upon thousands of laps that just say, look, this is the level that I am at and this is what I am capable of going out there and doing. It's 160 turns today, but it's all about the different areas of the circuit. You can break it up into some wonderful sections. The run up to Flugplatz and then through Arenberg, the first part, the jump up Ardenau first, over through Meggetzfeld, and then over the top side of the circuit. You got Bergwerk and the Lauder Links, and then over to the carousel. Every single section has a little map of the history, and you say it's a 22, 23 kilometer circuit, and here in the Rhineland-Palatinate, this is a place where you sit down and quite simply, you just turn around and say, there is nothing like it, and there never ever will be again. It's a relic that is relished by many.
Yeah, I think that is a pretty accurate statement, that unlikely to ever see another place like this built. And the championship has been built well by Andy T, who has clinched it as of last weekend. Topi Kortinemi cannot catch him because of the drop weeks from here on out. Now, one of the interesting stats is Valenteus, despite being third, hasn't won yet this season in the 79s. We'll see if he can manage to change that before all is said and done. Togo Hisada has taken a victory, but hasn't had the results I think he's been hoping for. Jacob Breed, on a pretty good season, is still sitting down in fifth, only 4 points behind Hisada. So there is a very close battle there happening right at the end of things. JDS, Martinez, Blair, Freesia, and Banfield round out the F1 standings, but they also hold an F2 championship in this series.
Yeah, and this will be for the drivers who have less than 3,000 iRating out there, where Luke Turnerson is currently the fastest in the championship. He's 42 points ahead of Craig Sandlin, and Brandon White just 7 points back of that. Antonio Alvarez is fourth, and it's basically a large gap from there to Jesse Brannan, who is there in fifth place, ahead of Michael Taylor by 5. 10 over to Ben Summers, where you find Remy Villeneuve in 8th position. Barry West, a big favourite, there in 9th position, and Keith Herner rounding out the top 10 at 144 points adrift, which should lead us over to the Nations Cup.
And it's actually teams championship over here in the 70s. Yeah, I know, 49, it's easy to get them mixed up. But Williams is at the top, and Arrows is trailing them by a big margin. They do not score the points the same way here in the team standings as they do in the Drivers' Championship. So that 111 is going to be almost insurmountable. Ligier sitting in third, not that far behind them, with JIB or Jib Racing, as we have been corrected recently, sitting in fourth. They're also able to maybe jump up into that second spot before this is done. From there, it's a giant leap down to TVR. Brazilian Speed Star ways behind them by almost or 54 points, it looks like, to be accurate, with Lotus, Totoro, Tiso and Nazgul. They're your top 10 in the standings. Real quick, before we head on over to our action, which is only going to be warm-up, why don't we go through the race details?
Look, we're at the crunchy end of the season, round 10 of 12, and so with a championship that is already under lock and key, you have these final few rounds to go and grab your points. Now, it doesn't sound like much today, 6 laps worth of racing, but you consider that it's 22 kilometers each. It'll take you roughly about an hour to go and sort yourself out in terms of what makes this race go. You've got no spare car to save you, but you can change the setup to help, and this would be a circuit where you would do, because of a lot of the lumps and bumps of this place, very different to most other circuits out there. And critically, you get drive-through penalty at 17 and disqualification at 25. So that means that if you're picking up incidents, you're in a world of trouble if you run off the road. Thing about the Nürburgring, if you run off the road, you're probably finding a guardrail while you're at it. So don't worry too much about that.
I very rarely see incident points become a factor in races here. It's mistakes tend to lead more to damage on the car itself than it does to your incident limit. So as we wait for the cars to wrap up the practice, this place is so big that they actually have to have a separate qualifying session, because you wouldn't be able to get around in time for most cars. This one probably could make it, because you see laps in about 6 minutes length. I think a little bit less than 6 minutes for these cars around here, but it still would be difficult to try and even just get that one lap in if they started you on the Darener Hoa. So last little moments to just get themselves all ready to go. I think the other interesting thing about this place, Jake, is that passing's possible, but it's not in the corners for once.
No, and one of the reasons why is that the corners around here are very shallow. This is a very tight circuit around here. At best, you have 2 wide in various sectors of this track, and so it takes so much responsibility and bravery to go and make those passes around some of these corners that you legitimately just have to wait for the straights. And if you think, oh, I can just push a drive to the other side, look at those old school high curbs that are around the majority of this circuit. You can't attack these style of curbs, otherwise you're just going to see the car spin around. So you have to stick to the straight and narrow, and you have to respect this circuit. It's one of the few circuits where drivers can't impose their will on it. The circuit imposes the will back.
Yeah, you talk about those curbs. You also have to remember that these cars have the ground effect downforce. So as soon as you start to lift it off the ground, you lose all that downforce, and that is going to be a nightmare. I think we're about to head on over to our starting grid today. And like we said, that grid has already been set earlier, so no need to check on any of the times because we won't be getting any of those times. Topi Kortaniemi is on the top step as we start off. Andreas Valenteus will start from P2 next to him. Can he finally get that win? Jack David Spickett from third, then is followed by James Barry in fourth and Antti Lepisto in fifth position. Ross Banfield, P6 for him, has Aaron Blair starting from seventh, Arto Iamaki in P8. Hans Sommer will be ninth, and Mickey Friesen is 10th.
It'll only be a minute's grid up, so let's go quickly through it. As Zach Leon Hardy is 11th alongside Gabriel Martinez. Jerno Fritzsche way down in 13th with John Pettick, as Luke Turness and Jason Krakowiak are on row 8 with Andrew Petty and Michael Taylor. Jean-Francois Boscos has Iago Franangelo Fraganilo, sorry, they're in 20th.
And it's Pablo Arteaga, Jesse Brannon, and Peter Yurka down to 23rd. Cockram, Zabala, Sandlin, Villeneuve, and Summers round out the field of 28 who are ready to go when the engines are revving. And now the green flag is out. It's a very good start there from Jack David Spickett, trying to come around the outside of Valenteus, but gets denied. Behind him, we watch carefully to see if anybody has any trouble. And so far, so good. They make it through the first corner, 159 to go.
Yep, Sabine Schmitz, the first corner. She tried to do 10 minutes in a van, or 9:59 in a van. She did a 10:08 in a Ford Transit around this place. A truly magnificent driver in her own right that was taken too soon. But I look around at a start, you get the first sense of everybody hold your line. Flugplatz is the first corner that makes you worry because it's the first time you see four wheels jump off the air and you lose the contact patch and the ground effect.
Yeah, you can see they're trying to hug the ground as it's very fast on the way out of there. All the way down through into Cottonborn. You are flat out until you get to the Schweidenkreuz. And as we ride on board with Spickett, again, he decides to just hold back for now, still following second place Valenteus, being led by Kortaniemi at the front.
Look, Topi Kortaniemi isn't used to losing a championship, but Andy T has just been that level above. Kortaniemi is one of the best of the best, and he will now be looking around saying, Andy doesn't have to come and race today. I now want to go and get a victory because I am not going to sit back and watch that happen. Look at the way that Andreas Valenteus, the gold standard, just clips the curve then through the first part, has to try and fight through the second part of the corners there, up to Adenauer first, and now over up on the vista view of this circuit, heading over towards Megatsfeld, which will be not this left-hander, but next one afterwards, Hans Sommer, then in this 8th position, +1 off of the start for the moment, eyeing up Aaron Blair, and you're sitting down into the rhythm of this track because effectively you're in the stop-start section of this circuit. You don't stop to a crawl, but you've got these medium section corners that all blend into each other.
This is always one of the most dangerous times of the race at the start at the Nürburgring. You can get caught up in anybody else's mistake in front of you with ease, so you have to keep your head on a swivel. Seems like Summers' view of Blair is not that great because Blair keeps disappearing due to connection, and you're right, Mickey Friesen. Did he actually get the wall, or did he just have to gather it up?
I think he just overcooked it. He locked up at inside front, then had no drive. He struggled with a broken shifter last week. The bracket came completely off in the IMSA Vintage race, and you look at this here, I think he was just going for a gear out of the corner and then realised, no, I've got nothing, I've got to stay out of the way. So if he's struggling still again with the shifter and the bracket that he's got, he is going to really hurt today around the Nordschleife.
That is frustrating. It's hard enough to race it normally, but then dealing with something in your setup is just got to be a nightmare. Here is our F2 leader, Luke Tennyson, is coming up the hill now through the run that is perhaps the biggest climb through Kesselchen up to Klostertal, but the Moot Curve is what will really test these drivers down through there, and you can see they have to take all the way to the edge of the track.
Yeah, Mickey Friesen's all over him like a rash now because Turnison had to really back out of it. They work hard into this next right-hander. You've got to leave each other a bit of room, and then over to the Caracciolo Carousel, which is now this wonderful bit of road. It's concrete banked on the inside. It's over a second's worth of time. 2 seconds you lose if you're stuck on the outside and you miss the apex. So it's a must-make corner. And then out of here, welcome to the second half of the lap as they now take the crest of the rise and up over towards Hoheacht.
You can see how much the back of these cars are dancing around, especially with the bumps over this place. It goes through those German winters up in the mountains and really makes for not that smooth of a surface, which is not fun when you're dealing with a car that needs to be glued to the ground. Oh, and that is definitely not glued to the ground once again as Luke goes all the way off course coming down through Wipperman.
Well, Luke Turnison, you can't complain the fact that he's going to go out there and drive 10/10s out of it here around this circuit. This is one of the tougher tracks to go and get correct because it's just so long and all the corners become one out there, and you look around on this circuit and all the different various people who have come here have written along this circuit and have marked and etched their name into the history of this place. And so this is one of the truly unique tracks out there that is immortalized with what everyone is capable of doing. Turnison still working hard with Andrew Petty just in front, John Pethick as well. Gernot Frieser has gone nowhere off of this start. This was a driver that, 10 to 5 years ago, Joe, you couldn't buy a win off of him.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting how the chemistry has changed and the nature of the racing here has kind of evolved over the years with drivers coming and going. Andrew Petty putting some pressure on as he gets by Mickey Friesen and almost forces Luke Tunison off the course, but now it's the run down the Dottinger Hoa, all three of them well within range. This is where it gets interesting, and Andrew Petty gains another spot using that slipstream.
I'll argue that the other way there, Joe. Petty ran wide, and so Turnison had to go around the outside of the Golden Cough to go and get that done. Now the toe's going to work the other way. Hans Sommer now in 9th position. This is where you need a buddy out there on track, and what I mean is you got to try and work a way through. If you don't have toe to the car in front, say goodbye to any hope at the end of this opening lap of getting somewhere near the front of the field. There's a reason why 3 are clear, and even at the back, Peter Yirka, and round you go. That's Jesse Brannan finding out how tough it is. 3 wide they were, working on forward, and the Ligier Gitanes, just a tangle of wheels side by side. It's so easily done. You can lose sight of anyone who's around you when you're going at those sorts of speeds, Joe, into that section. We're talking 280 kilometers an hour there.
Yeah, I'm checking to see how fast he was when he spun. He was doing about 170 when he went around. Oh, and we have our first victim, unfortunately. But yeah, Jesse is honestly lucky that he wasn't among those that is now retired from this race and just did a 360 without hitting anything. Valenteus, in the meantime, stays within range of Cortinemi, still in second. We have not had any change of position between the top 4 since the green flag, but we're 1 lap down. We watch the top 3 come up towards Flugplatz now as Franganillo looks like he has just found himself going a bit hard downhill into Sabina Schmitz and has some damage, eventually gets it going.
Well, if you find yourself with too much of a turn of it... Oh, Pethick! And one upside down. That might be Friesen there, who gathers it up into the Arenberg Armco. And that is a massive accident at that section of road. You've got to be so careful when you have an incident around there. And I'll be thankful it's virtual, because if you make any damage to the Armco, you pay for the damage to the Armco.
Exactly. And that was indeed Friesen who went up and over in that incident along with Pethick. I'm not sure if he was attempting a pass or if he was just caught out, but wheel-to-wheel contact in open wheelers is never a good thing, and that really displays why.
Well, look, the car just grabbed there in the gravel and just flipped it up and over. You don't often get to see that, but it looked to me there, Joe, like that Mickey Friesen was very much in a place where he'd overcommitted to the outside, was trying to gather the car back up under brakes, and then ran himself out of road and was over the back of the tyre. I think that's all on Mickey Friesen. Not much that John Pethick can do about that. He's just been run over.
So watching Gernot Friese just behind Gabri Martinez right now. This is for 11th spot. Both drivers up one from where they began. Andrew Petty, who is trying to catch up to them, has had a very good race. He's up 4 currently, continues to climb through the field. Clearly a little bit of a better racer than a qualifier. What about Zach Leonardi? We saw a lot of him last week. He's fighting with Aaron Blair for P7.
Yep, so now Aaron Blair, who it will be looking back now at Leon Hardy, will be thinking, well, I'm the number 20 car in this race, and I will look behind. That's the number 9 car there in this race behind me. So Blair will feel like he's above where he should be batting out there on average. Little blink, but he's okay. But Leon Hardy here will feel, I'm up 3 places. Car in front of me isn't. Aaron's got a lot of blinking issues out there that he's got to try and deal with. But Leon Hardy runs very wide there over through the Bravery Bend, as it is sometimes known in its anglicised form, and realises, I'm not going to get there this time. I'm going to have to wait for a much better opportunity to make my move.
Shout out to Zach for definitely one of the coolest liveries I've seen on this 79 in some time. Definitely feels IndyCar inspired, but coming around through the carousel. The car is all over the place. It has been bouncing left and right since we've joined him recently, and you can see the effect that's had on him chasing Blair as he falls off by a number of tenths.
Yeah, I wonder whether his car, Joe, is too low down to the ground, and so that he needed a little bit more ride height. Obviously, the lower you get it down to the ground, the more grip you're going to get through the court. Ooh, that was very, very sideways there that we saw just in front of Jack David Spickett there. That's Topi Courtaniemi pushing like anything to build on a 1.1 second gap that he now rests with at the front of the field in the Glacier Racing number 2. So I think what you've got to really look at is he wants to be out there, he wants to be pushing, he wants to do everything he possibly can to break away. I think this is one of those circuits where you paint in between the lines and you get as close to the lines as possible. Sometimes you are going to have to step the car out to make it quick, especially in cars like these where all of the power of that Ford DFB Cosworth engine is going to be spooling up into uncopious amounts of torque that is put through these tyres.
Does the name Jack mean anything here? Because there was certainly a man that was named Jack that was great at this place and was able to dub it the Green Hell, Jackie Stewart. Jack David Spickett going to try and pull some of that here as he holds on to Valenteus, who's been dropping off of Courtaniemi bit by bit. Now, I think Audris is still going to feel a bit of that toe coming down the Dottie Nurhoa, so that will pull him back in, but that means Jack David Spickett won't gain as much as he wants since the car in front of him will get that slipstream. Let's see what the effect is by the time they hit the brakes.
I'll tell you what, Audris is driving really well at this point in time. He is trying to get as much pace as he can. We call him the gold standard. Do you know what it says on his car, Joe? It says, "Go gold for kids with cancer." It's a wonderful livery that he's got out there on his car at the moment.
Excellent stuff. Aaron Blair, is his connection cleared up as he stopped blinking? It certainly seems so. Lepisto in front of him is not worried about him. He's still trying to fight with Ross Banfield for a top 5 position. And as the three of them ease up into the chicane at the end of the Dottie Nurhoa, doesn't look like anybody's able to do anything yet. That means now they have to stay patient for quite a while until they get to the next straight, which runs down to Fluke Plots.
So you think about that and you think, oh, that's not ideal for me. I would argue, yes, it is, because you get to understand where a driver looks good through these opening corners and where they don't. And if you understand where a driver is going to potentially be having mistakes, I look at Ross Banfield there. He had to take 2 takes through the corner. He is very quick at anything he sets his mind to, is Ross Banfield. I would turn around and go, well, if he's a little bit loose through a couple of these corners because he's having to push from the pressure behind, I might want to try and push him a little bit closer through some of the corners, try and get him to crack, make a mistake, find the barriers. So you're always trying to suss out at a circuit like the Nürburgring, where is the mistake I can find, where can I get the pressure, and where can I get the easiest pass?
And while we can see James Barry just in front of him, he's that red car that's just a little bit up the road, maybe about a second. He's completely lost touch with the top three, so they have absolutely taken off in these early stages. Although I say early stages, I guess we're about halfway through. Hans Sommer in a side-by-side fight through Ehrenberg. This is brave stuff between the pair of them. I think Han realizes that Ardo Iamaki will retain that 9th position, but maybe by a glint of just the fact that it's too dangerous to try and continue this fight here.
Going up through compression, your head just wants to duck in between your legs as you go through there. There's so much negative G through that section. For these drivers, all they'll feel is a light wiggle on the wheel as they go through that. So Ihamaki jumps on through as Antti Lepisto continuing on with the pressure. That's wide, just behind there from Aaron Blair. Grabs a bit of grass. Leon Hardy can't quite find the lane to go and make it happen. But James Barry is a curious case. Yes, the front three have got away. James is not that new, not that old to the car compared to the drivers he's racing up against. He's a very fast driver as James Barry, and one of his best cars that is out there, believe it or not, is the Radical SR10. He's always up there racing in the Radical European Championship.
Now, I'm going to tempt fate here, Jake. There has been very few DNFs so far. Only 2 cars are out of our 28 starters. There have been a couple other incidents that we've seen out there, but color me impressed. Usually this place eats up more cars than that by now.
Well, maybe the Nürburgring's just not hungry at the moment.
Well, Zach Leonardi is hungry for 7th spot because Aaron Blair still holds in front of him. And then just up the road, that's Lepisto and Banfield that we've switched to. The Finn is still giving chase on the American, and up through the run through Kesselchen. He's going to start to pull in, but this is flat out, but not a straight. And he dares to try and look inside, coming up through Bravery Corner, and decides against it as he now backs off. And yeah, the aero wash probably not making it comfortable to stay that close.
Yeah, you don't want to be bump drafting your way along straights like these. You know that you got the front wing, which is so important. If you turn it up, you're going to lose 2-3 tenths of a second in a straight line per straight and make that half a second on the Dottinger Herve if you're not careful. And you also have to be very careful how you tip it here into the Caracciolo carousel, named after Rudolf Caracciolo, who was the Swiss driver, I believe he was, that was so revolutionary in the old silver arrows, the 1930 silver arrows out there, which is what the corner is named after. It is a wonderful driver, but you look around at someone like Antti Lepisto, for example, he's just got to be careful about where he tiptoes the car in, because if he even knocks the front wing too much, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. You want a wing that is absolutely rigid flat, that it is right now. If you see any form of smirk come across the front wing, you know you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's a good point. As we come back to Zach once again. Oof, that was a bit of an interesting run into the corner there from Aaron Blair as the car got loose. So there's some of that downforce that you were talking about, or lack of it, that drivers struggle with through these parts of the circuit. You might be fast on the straightaways, you might be able to make the passes, but you have to survive everywhere else.
Yeah, this section, Flansgarten, is just so scary. You've got to find your braking point and then work through, and you are pretty much near flat out through all of this. Down the hill, squirreling goes Leon Hardy. Now through to Stefan Beloff, one of the great drivers out there who never got their chance to be truly quick. He was lightning fast. There was arguments that if he would have had his time, he would have challenged Ayrton Senna for a couple of his titles, Alain Prost for a couple of his, with the pace and the level that he held. Then through the miniature carousel, up towards the Goldenkopf, Leon Hardy here, happy to sit, happy to follow, because now as you get a good Goldenkopf up over the top of the hill, now is where you're going to start feeling that advantage, and he is so loose.
Yeah, we saw it again. The rear of the car just wants to break away, but that should mean that he's very fast on this part of the track, and indeed, he's catching up to Blair, catching up. He gets to the gearbox and pops out to try and take that 7th place away, but now he's going to feel the effects of that air on his car, and it slows him down, and look, it's the reverse. He falls back once again. By the way, Jack David Spickett, who was getting close, I'll get back to that point in just a moment, as that was tight for Zach, and he had to back out because Aaron chopped him off a coming into Tiergarten. Meanwhile, Gabri Martinez, who is never shy of a fight, is in a nice little tussle here with Frisha.
Well, Gernot Freicher is one of the most respected drivers in this field. He is the living legend of the Lotus 79, and so he will give you enough room to battle with, and he'll also know how to beat you every which way in terms of these moves that he deals with. Gabri is not gun-shy in making a pass. I think that's a fair statement to make, and sometimes that reputation, you see it with drivers. Enzo Cantor always comes to mind for me. A driver that is not afraid to tussle it out, gets into more incidents than most, and then gets an unfair reputation for how they deal with. Sometimes drivers like that just need to work out when to fight, when to gather it back up.
I think right now Zach wants to fight. He still is doing his best to try and get by Aaron Blair, and though his car has some straight line speed, it just is not quite enough. He's once again going to force the issue up to the Swedish cross here. It's hard to go side by side through this fast sweeper, and he has to back out once again before Ehrenberg. Getting back to the point that I tried to touch on earlier, Jack David Spickett has fallen off the back of Valenteus, and I think we're starting to see the differences in some of the drivers' setups. We got some good information from our producer. Topi reached a top speed of 287 kilometers per hour. Audrius 288. Jack only 283.
Well, what I find interesting is Audrius only had 1 kilometer an hour advantage there because he was happy to see it get it down to 6.5 tenths of a second. He wasn't going to make any move that was going to pretty much put him in front. He also knows that a circuit like this, it's not just about if you can make the move, it's about when. There's a timing factor to a place like this. Because you've got such a long final straight, it pretty much becomes a case of whoever's behind has pretty much an 80% chance of coming out as the race winner when you hit that section and you're within 1 second. Give credit to these drivers and the pace that they're doing. The leaders are sub 6 seconds, sub 6 minutes, sub 6 seconds, they'd be flying around here. It's a 5:52 that is being done at the moment here by Audrius Valenteus, a 5:53 from Topi Courtaniemi. So that's the difference you're seeing here. Compared to these drivers in what is 5th, 6th, 7th, they're about 3 to 4 seconds a lap slower around here, which on any other given circuit, they'd probably be only about 6 tenths off the pace.
Yeah, you mentioned Beloff earlier. I believe for a long, long time, he held the lap record around here in a Porsche prototype before Porsche brought back another of their prototypes decades later and reset it on their own. But that was, of course, only in an exhibition run. Back to Valenteus. Jack David Spickett actually caught back up a little bit. It was up to nearly 2 seconds. It cut down to 1.3, but he's starting to lose once again. Again, implying to me that these fast parts are where we've seen JDS is weak. Oh my goodness, through Bravery corner, and will they get out the other side? Yes, they will, but they are slow now, and here comes Ardo Iamaki, but with no place to go. Somehow all cars managed to reach to the top of the hill, but it was close.
Iamaki there was very happy. If the gap would have opened, he would have shot the gap, but ultimately he can't get there. He can't jump the shark. He's very happy with the fact that he is close, but look at what it has done. These two battling. Leon Hardy through on Blair, but now Iamaki, Sommer, and Freicher all together, and all proving that they're going to want something out of this one with only a handful of laps left to go in this one. It'll be 2 at the line, so Iamaki proving that he is thinking about it. He's not just going to go sending it down the inside because he feels like it. He waited for the opportunity. It didn't quite present itself, but it was a very good effort.
A lot about this track is a sense of self-preservation and not making decisions that you're later going to regret. And when I say later, usually that means a split second after you make it. Valenteus still within about 3 tenths of Courtaniemi, but Jack David Spickett has cut it down to 8 tenths now. But we're getting close to the Dottinger Hoa once again. This is out of Flans Garden. Now to the Beloff S's once again. This is going to be another fast part, and Valenteus closing to within a car length of the gearbox of the Finn, but then has to wait patiently. This is out of Swallowtail up into the mini carousel. It is the exit out of Gallows Hill, Gaugenkopf, that will make the difference, and there's a bobble from Courtaniemi off the carousel.
Well, it's a pretty big bobble, and I will also note that Andrew Petty is in a bit of trouble because he's now out of this one. So we take a look then, both, well, we actually got the same shot here on two different screens, showing you just how important it is to get yourself steady. They can't leave themselves room because Jack David Spickett here is eyeing up his opportunity to say, look, I can't let this go. From the engine of Topi Courtaniemi, you can see it. They pass the entrance on the right-hand side, and Aldrius only now has the confidence to move over to that left-hand side. No, I don't think he's going to go for it here. He's not alongside to make it happen. Topi has outstemmed the bleeding there on the straight.
But critically, with Jack becoming a factor potentially, I know it's not the last lap as they cross the line, but it's getting close to it. If Jack is still there by the time they're on their final run down that long straight, that makes it so much more complicated if you're Valenteus.
Well, it does, because not only do you have to worry about what you're going to do and you getting by, you then have to now time your run to go and make it happy. So I look at Aldrius Valenteus here. It's an impossible situation that you just have to manage.
It is what it is. They're now 11 seconds ahead of James Barry. The pace has been immense up at the front. I have no doubt that Topi Courtaniemi is trying his darndest to split away from them. He almost did for a brief moment, but Valenteus clearly has a quick car towards the end of the race as the fuel starts to burn off. And in fact, Valenteus currently holds the quickest lap at the last time through. Or no, excuse me, the last time was not the quickest. It's a 5:52.8, I believe, is the quickest we've got.
Gabri up the hill at Exmuller there on replay, finding out just how tough that corner is. It really is just as subtle as well, it's a right-hand corner. It's a right hook that you get through there. Andrew Petty also had his own issue right in front of Luke Turnison, who managed to drive on through. I believe we're just about to catch a replay of this. So he'd just been overtaken by Cookie Monster, and he said, no cookie for you.
Whoa.
Bang, into the wall. Heavy incident.
That's how the cookie crumbles if you're Andrew Petty. And he's got himself facing the right way, but missing quite a few parts of the car. Valenteus waiting so patiently. I'm pretty sure that he could have made some moves by this point, especially what we saw coming down the Dottinger Hoa last time. He was absolutely not at full throttle. So he's got to be playing a game. He's got to be trying to bide his time for the right moment to strike. But will he call it right now as they plunge back down the hill once again? This is through miss, hit, miss, and then into Defense Valley. We've got another replay. I said earlier that the track had not gobbled up as many cars as I expected, but it seems like it's starting to get hungry again. Oh, in this case, Peter Yurka finds out how blind it is coming through many of the corners. If a car is not clear to return to the track, it could take you both out just like that.
Oh, Petter, that's going to be really disappointing there, because he's not done anything wrong, really. He could have slowed up maybe a tiny bit more. I think it was John Pethick who was trying to return to circuit there, and Pethick's tried to get that turned around. He hasn't looked at his black box relative, and suddenly he finds himself broadside across the circuit, nowhere to go. Especially here, you have to be extra patient, waiting for a car to get its clearance as you go on by. That's really not great as far as an incident goes. But what I find interesting, Joe, is looking at Aldrius Valenteus, how he closes, how he looks, how he searches. He's trying every which way. He looked left, right, up, down, slantways. He used the great glass elevator from Willy Wonka. He couldn't find a way through on that occasion. But the biggest challenge I think drivers have is when they know they're quicker than the car in front and can't get by. How do they keep their rhythm? That's what I think a great driver will show, is that they have the patience and the craft to not just lose concentration when they can't drive the way they want to.
And I think he maybe didn't anticipate exactly where Topi was going to place his car coming up through Kesselchen, because it looked awful loose and a little bit sketchy coming through there in comparison. He didn't lose any time, but I'm sure that scared him a little bit, as now we're up at the highest part of the track, and then it'll be a little bit of a downhill. Oh no, Zach Leonardi, who had been having a good race, maybe fell victim to that lack of downforce finally, as he found himself in the barrier here at the carousel.
Well, he's tried to just tip it in late, and he's over-tipped it in, and he's basically riding the berm as he went through on the middle of the car. So as he's trying to get that sorted and slowed down, the car's always going to turn around for him, because you got to realise, Joe, when you're in the middle of that section and you're trying to turn it in, you're effectively saying you don't have the contact patch on the front right tyre. So trying to get that stopped on 3 wheels rather than 4, that's never going to work.
That cost him a few positions. He's now down to 12th. Valenteus, we come back to him as we check out the replay, and yeah, there you go. It definitely takes its own technique to get into that banking, because it is single file. There's pretty much no other corner in racing like it, unfortunately. But we return once again to the Dottie Rojoa, so let's watch and see how this is going to happen this time. The irony, if Audrius is able to take this win, I said that he's been trying to take the victory, hasn't had it so far this season, and he's been close to getting the triple threat that we've talked about so many times of winning all 3 of the vintage races. Well, he didn't show up for IMSA Vintage this weekend, so he won the 49s. He might win here today. If he gets it, it won't be the three-peat once again. Spickett with just nothing on these 2, foot flat to the floor, and not gaining on Valenteus, who is still just watching and waiting.
Do you know what that tells me, Joe, with about a lap to go? It tells me that Jack Davis Spickett is just trying to get a finish out of it first and foremost. It's a lot more conservative of a run he's got. Auntie Lepisto trying to deal with Ross Banfield. Actually give a lot of credit to Ross Banfield and the way he's driven today. He has just held his nerve and he's doing well. And look at Journo, wily character Journo Freacher, just trying to pick up one place here, one place there, and he'll get one and more, because Aaron Blair has just made carbon fiber confetti down there at turn 13, and that is a huge accident. We nearly get another with Arteaga.
Oh, they'll get it sorted out. Again, there needs to be some discretion with this track. Learn when to give it up. And that wasn't the case with Aaron Blair. I think that was just a mistake, succumbing to the pressure from the car behind. And that is gutting when that happens, Jake. Almost to the white flag, knowing you only need to complete 1 more lap.
And this circuit's got the most corners, so it's actually the best for your safety rating, the Nürburgring. So that's why you find certain drivers come here and are really low on their license. It's how they build their license. They just run this all week and say, look, we're going to get what we need. Look at Audrius, outside line of Arenberg, trying to find it. Topi Courtiniemi just gives him a little shove away like he's a South African rugby player, just deciding, no, I'm not going to touch that, as he works on forward. That is a tough moment there for Audrius Valenteus. He tried, but that's it. It was just an attempt. He needs to find another way.
I am surprised. I thought Audrius was going to wait until the end of the lap, but no, he's trying a few creative things a little bit earlier, but it has made him fall back a little bit here. The car slides around throughout an hour forest, and now Jack David Spickett gets ever close to him. He's got to be careful. If Jack gets a whiff of a chance to try and pass him, I'm sure he won't turn down second place.
No, Jack won't. Jack would absolutely love second place at the moment. He knows how quick he is. He knows how lightning fast he can be. But I would turn around and say, Jack's got a car that can follow here and can arguably say he's the quickest through this section. But let me tell you this, as they go through what Jimmy Broadbent calls miss. This section, you can never get it right. It's the fact that if you're the quickest in the corners, you need to be able to set up being quickest in the corners to go and get the move. I don't think Jack can. And Jack, I think, is resigned to third if he has to continue following like this.
Still, the battle is not over. They are well clear of those behind. It is down to these 3 alone to decide the win. 15 seconds back to James Berry. About the only thing that could help James take the victory is if all 3 wadded up at the end of the lap. So as we watch the Finn continue to lead the way, Audrius now has to make up a 10th or 2 to get back to that gearbox. Will he do so here? Will he make another brave move, maybe coming up into Bravery Corner? Or what is his approach going to be? He starts to regain. It's down to less than a quarter of a second now behind the number 2. I don't think he's going to manage to get side by side before they get to the left-hander here. And indeed, no, he has to sit and wait behind. In fact, the car washes out a little bit.
That dirty air really plays a factor, and Topi Courtiniemi knows it. He's working from a position of strength. Big lock up, and that could be the chance then that Jack David Spickett needs. He's on the wrong side for the carousel, though, and that could have been the moment where Jack David Spickett could have gone for glory there, but just didn't have enough. It was gathered up perfectly by Andreas Valenteius. You can tell he's pushing at 100% here and more, trying to get it done. I don't see Andreas lock up the car very often. I don't see him make mistakes like that very often. He's had 2 on this lap because he is just so needy and desperate to get by Topi Courtiniemi. It's a very hard quiz question here that is being set right now by Valenteius. Topi's got all the answers.
Certainly is a meeting of the minds. Both of them are very smart drivers, but they're also extremely fast. And I do think that Topi is pushing like the Dickens up there, trying to make it as hard as possible for Valenteius to get by him. Not going to allow it to be an easy pass, that's for sure. Jack David Spickett, again, as close as he is, he struggles in the wake of the number 1 car. He might be fast in the corners, but there's no place to take it.
No, and so that is going to be as tough can be, as they now set up their run through these incredibly fast corners down the hill. Belofest now leaning up. Courtiniemi has been caught up, but now it's a question of can Andreas find the positioning, or has Topi done what he's needed to? If Topi's clever here, he can hold up a corner like this, but the door is left half ajar. Now they're going to fight for the miniature carousel, and they're going to be all over each other. I think this is quite deliberate right now from Courtiniemi. He's trying to get to every trick of the book to slow them down, to have a shot of breaking away through this golden calf.
Now, does he try and back it up to get himself a better run? He might need that extra momentum. And as he starts to pull him in, here it is, the deciding moment. Dot and Erhoa, as they pick up speed, 175 miles an hour. He manages to get alongside him. Is there enough momentum? No, there's not. As he starts to slow down, this is the problem if you pop out too early. And now Jack David Spickett, he can't do anything, even with both cars pulling him along. He has stalled out behind them with no place to go. They bang wheels. Topi Courtiniemi and Andreas Valenteius. Will they come to blows to decide this one? Another go at it, and they are going to make contact. Once again, they are, in fact, going to make contact. Jack David Spickett is going to try and take it away. A wounded car in front of him, but he can't fight his way around. Topi Courtiniemi, can he limp it home as he comes around the final corner? This is going to be it. Somehow he holds on. Unbelievable move from Topi Courtiniemi to limp that car home to the win.
Jack had it all there on a silver plate to try and pick this one up. The contact with Andreas Valenteius, absolutely huge. He went through the wherewithal of Courtiniemi there. He goes around 360. He just front and noses it into the wall. Absolutely dramatic, but Jack just could not find the lane, and there was enough drive for Topi to get himself home. Brilliant stuff there. And it's going to end in tears here as well for Mikael Thabala. Then as Arteaga and Boskus will go by, so too will Krakowiak. That one's going to sting too, but it's that sort of circuit. You aim yourself up for the end, and Andreas, rare to see him make mistakes like that. He does. It costs him so much more than you think. That'll be 100 iRating out the window.
Yeah, Pablo able to do what JDS was unable to, found his way past the accident as Zabala now completes his race as well, taking 17th. We are going to manage, it looks like, 22 cars able to make their way home. One of them not Andreas Valenteius. 21 cars, really, I think, is what the final count will be to get past in the end. Wow, that was an incredible finish, even by Nürburgring standards. And at the top of it, it was Topi who takes another victory. Jack David Spickett behind him by just under 0.2 of a second, unable to get by the very slow Finn, as Ross Banfield will jump up into third thanks to the incidents around him. Something happened to James Berry then, as he fell back to fourth behind Antti Lepisto, fell back to fifth rather behind Antti Lepisto, who was fourth. Gernot Friesche takes sixth, and Ardo Iamaki seventh, with Hans Sommer in at P8, and Luke Tunison, F2 championship leader, gets a nice ninth place. Zach Leonardi rounds out the top 10.
Just taking a look there at James Barry, it looks like he just got caught on the last lap and he went through. And on top of that, a lot to say between Toppy and Aldris. Aldris going, what was that? And Toppy said, not surprised if you peek your nose in. And so he's not very happy about how that went through. Now, Gabri Martinez finishes 11th ahead of Pablo Arteaga, with Jean-Francois Boscus in 13th. Jason Krakowiak finishes ahead of Remy Villeneuve in 15th. Then Matthew Cockerham and Mikhail Zabala, who drops a handful of places late with the contact through the final corners. He gets up to, or down to 17th in the end. Michael Taylor would be 18th ahead of Ben Summers and a minute 14 off the pace. Craig Sandlin there, rounding out your top 20.
21st goes to Jesse Brannon, and then it's Audrius Valenteus, who unfortunately finds himself a DNF today. Peter Yurka as well in 23rd. Blair, Pethick, Petty, Franganillo, and Friesen all out of this race. Let's take one more look at the incident, see if we can kind of break this one down a little bit. We knew it was going to wind up close between the two cars, and we knew that everybody was going to get aggressive. He switches sides here. And yeah, I just don't think there was space. But also you could argue that Topi maybe could have left a little bit there. I don't know. That is a very tough call.
Aldris will feel that Topi Courtiniemi was weaving all over that straight, Joe. And to an extent, he was, because they're not playing with FIA rules where you only got one move to defend yourself. You're looking around at what Topi's trying to do. He's trying to own the crown of the road in the middle, because the road is going to bend to two ways. If you're on the crown of the road, it's the fastest point of the road in the middle. So he's trying to force Aldris Valenteus off of that crown. He gets the clearance that he wants. Aldris then goes aggressive because it's the final lap, and there's overlap as they go through and they get the contact. And quite simply put, Aldris will go, please stop moving on the straight. That's why we've had an incident. We could have had one a lot earlier. And Toppy will say, well, I'm commanding the middle of the road. I decide where I choose to defend the car. It's your job to get around me safely.
Well, one driver that did have a safer run to the finish was our third place finisher, Ross Banfield, who had some of his glory stolen. Because Ross, apologies, we were so busy watching the fight for the win, we did not catch that you made a great pass at the end to get onto what would eventually be the podium. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I was way off the pace setup-wise, so I figured I would just tune the car to be super slippery so that no one behind me could pass, and the guy basically was stuck behind the guy the entire time. And I don't know if he was running out of fuel, but he seemed to be lifting super early, and that allowed me to catch up. And then once I had the draft, I was able to seal the deal. It was just before that I couldn't get close enough to him to get in the draft, because every single time we'd go through the infield, I'd just get taken away with the dirty air.
I mean, how much does that affect you in the twistier bits? Because we saw a number of cars out there that looked massively loose, especially when they were following others. Is it pretty difficult to try and do that when you take away all that downforce to stick close?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I spent more time counter steering than I did actually steering into the corner. It was also super sketchy because if you touch any of those curbs, it's pretty much game over. You just fly into the opposite wall. So you're trying to find a little bit of clean air in between the car, and you're trying to take alternative lines, which it's kind of hard to memorize which lines work and which doesn't when you have 158 of them. So it's definitely a lot of fun. It's kind of like driving by the seat of your pants, which I really like.
Now for the tough speculation question. You finished 17 seconds behind those leaders. If you hadn't been plugged up behind James Berry, do you think you could have been closer to them?
No, I think in qualifying, I was almost 2 seconds off the top guys. So I just didn't have the set this week, unfortunately, but I knew I still was a pretty solid contender. I was surprised to get a podium, to be honest.
Well, I think it is well earned regardless. Congratulations on a top 3, Ross.
Thanks, guys.
Ross Banfield finishing P3. Now, our winner is here, and I do believe that Jake Sperry has some investigating to do, because it seems there's some contention after the race.
Well, Toppy, before we start talking about that incident then through the final lap, we have to talk about what brought you up to that point. You dominated with the qualifying effort. You built yourself a 1.1 second gap, and they were able to reel you back in again.
Yeah, I wasn't able to lose the draft, and I think Aldris got to about 8 tenths behind for the rear straight. So then he was able to close the gap, and then he was locked in without a significant mistake from either party. So I know it was game on for the last lap, but wasn't expecting that, to be honest.
Well, I don't think anyone is when you've got a driver of his caliber behind you, but he's a race driver. He wants to win races. That's why he's got the number 1 on his car. But talk us going down the Dottinger Hove, because you were just having a chat there with Aldris after the race. You were saying, I'm fighting for the crown of the road in the middle. I'm trying to get the best road possible to go and work with. You had a bit of side-to-side contact on the way up. You got the clearance barely, and then you suddenly found there's a braking zone, and there's Aldris Valenteus in your rear view.
Yeah, I was clear when I turned into the little chicane before the braking zone, at least on my end, and checking at replay. And then what happens on my end, he rear-ends me. I wasn't lifting at that point of braking. Obviously, because he has draft, he's getting closer. I think there's a racing incident because, I mean, there was centimeters of gaps, literally. And something that might happen. So I don't think either party is to blame there.
And let's just talk how you respond after an incident like that, because I don't know how you've got a car that had the damage that it did to get it over the line, and unless that, ahead of Jack, who pretty much had the perfect view of, I could go and get it, but, you know, your number 2 Glacier Racing car was the widest car in the world for the final 3 corners.
Yeah, I have no idea. I just kept driving the car like in practice, like when you spin, look in the direction where you want to go, and I was pointing forwards, Jack was behind, so yeah, I was fumbling to get the first gear in, and then I was having rear grip, so my differential price off were okay, so yeah, throttle, okay, steering, okay, yeah, let's go to the finish line.
Well, what an incredible result that is there today for you. A wild finish, but what a great win. Toppy Courtaniemi gets it done today, Joe, for Glacier Racing.
Amazing stuff, which is going to wrap us up for today. We want to give a huge thank you to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for a season of coverage, but also a thank you to our team that helped make this happen, Jake, Christian, and Dougie. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a moment, because the next race is going to be Phillip Island. That'll be March 1st. That's another one that tends to put on fantastic racing, especially in these cars. That'll be at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Up next on the channel, we do have the Porsche Owners Club going to a classic with Imola. And be sure to check out all of our other broadcasts that we have listed here. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.